It's only rock and roll, sang the Stones in 1974, but Keith Richards has been very critical of his peers, suggesting that in many cases he doesn't really like it at all. Welcome Classic Rock fans to a short video where we discuss the opinions of Keith Richards as expressed in his autobiography. If you're new to this channel, please do click like, subscribe, do check that notification bell as it makes all the difference. And check the links below this video where you can support the sterling work done at Classic Album Review. It's always much appreciated. Now, Keith Richards has come out and called Bruce Springsteen pretentious and indulgent, taking aim specifically at his extensive 4.5 hour performances, not to mention the fact that his fame, Springsteen's that is mainly due to the lack of talent that was around him at the time, stating that had it been a more level playing field, Springsteen would still be working bars. Now, these views are nothing new, of course. They were views expressed in his autobiography, Life, I think it was called, published in 2010, an autobiography in which he criticises Prince and Elton John. There's no love lost between him and Elton John. Elton John has come out and called Keith Richards pathetic and sad and the weakest link in the Rolling Stones. Words to that effect. I'm paraphrasing, you understand. But with Springsteen, of course, Richards calls him, as I said, indulgent and pretentious. And he says that these extensive shows that he does 3.5 hours, although he's cut those down to 2 hours 45 minutes these days, still a long show by any stretch of the imagination, but nevertheless still half an hour shorter. Keith Richards says these long shows are just self-indulgent really, and that true rock and roll pioneers were on the stage for about 20 minutes. And he cites a few examples. Jackie Wilson's one of them, where he talks about the impression that these people would make in that short space of time, that explosion of energy and sound that is very much rock and roll. I suppose he feels like dragging a show on for 3.5 hours just seems a little bit too much. Keith Richards argues that how can anyone remain enthralling and be on stage for 4 hours? Keith Richards has described the Springsteen live event as intolerable. Now, he's gone on to say that it's nothing personal against Bruce Springsteen. In fact, he feels he's a very nice guy, very personable, but he's not so keen on the music. Now, interestingly, Bruce Springsteen has said on numerous occasions how much of a hero the Stones are to him, and that it was always his dream to be on the same stage as them, a dream which I think he's pretty much fulfilled these days. But interestingly, Richards has said that often Springsteen's affability compensates for how intolerable his concerts are. I have heard some suggestions, namely Gene Simmons, that the Stones employ backing tracks when they play live, especially when it comes to the guitar parts and things like that. Maybe that's why the set list is so unimaginative, hasn't changed for 20 odd years, probably because they just know that they can get through without any flubs or fuffs. Maybe, I don't know, that's just a suggestion. But if that is the case, maybe we should employ the old adage that one living in glass houses should not throw stones. No pun intended. Now, in terms of how you feel about Springsteen, I know my audience is fairly divided on this. I think he's a remarkable songwriter, fantastic performer, and some of those shows with him and the E Street Band are some of the most powerful performances I've ever seen. But in terms of the length of these performances, I always felt that they were provided a wonderful vehicle for Springsteen to explore the vast range of his catalogue. You'd go to a Springsteen show, you could do like a whole album, but you'd also delve into newer tracks and dig out, dust off stuff he hadn't played for a long time, as well as incorporating all those favourite numbers that that the audience perhaps would expect him to play. As the shows get shorter, the artist starts to feel a little bit more squashed, really. They feel compelled to play certain songs, which then start to make the overall set somewhat predictable and staid, I think, which is certainly where the Stones are with their live performances. Personally, that's just my opinion. But with those extended Springsteen performances, there was an element of spontaneity and freedom about them, a celebration of this music and the audience, as well as the performance on stage. You used to go and you never knew what you were going to get from one night to the next. You go see Springsteen on the second night and get a drastically altered set list. He would often play all those ones we'd expect him to play, you know, Born in the USA, River, Hungry Heart and all that, Candy's Room, but there'd be a spattering of tracks he hadn't played for many, many years, as well as new tracks. It was a real reveling in this music, or the live phenomenon that was Springsteen and the E Street Band. The Stones, however, have been people have been calling on them to retire for many, many years, going way back to the 1980s. And this is a band that have defied their critics and gravity, I think. But I must admit, looking at them now, they are beginning to look as if it's about time they shuffled off the stage, quite frankly. You may well disagree with me. I fully appreciate that. But it's, to me, the reason why I think it's time to call it a day is they're looking tired. The set list is tired and predictable, and it just becomes a touring corporation under the Stones brand rather than being a rock and roll show. And Springsteen is moving into that territory himself, I think, looking at the recent set list, shortening his show from 3 hours 15 to 2 hours 40, 2 hours 45. He's recently gone on record saying it was a mistake to play those long shows. I fundamentally disagree. It was part of the very identity and the celebration of this music. But there you go, age, as the great philosopher Rocky Balboa said, that time beats us all eventually. That being said, those of you who are actually going to the Springsteen shows in London, those of you who are lucky enough to get a ticket or didn't mind paying extortionate amounts to get a ticket, not that there's any sour grapes here, you understand. I genuinely hope you enjoy the show. I'm sure it'd be an absolute corker. But for the Stones, for me, the only way I would go and see the Stones these days is if they played virtually on my doorstep, because I think their time has come, especially if allegations of playing to backing tapes and things like that are true. I don't know whether they are or not. So why has his comments on Springsteen been dredged up after all this time? I suspect there are two reasons, really. First of all, Springsteen is very much in the news at the moment due to his tour, and he's playing some European dates. I think he's playing London, I think, next month. And also Far Out magazine, or Far Out, the website, I'm not sure if it's an actual publication as such, has published an article, I think just today in fact, where they cite Richard's criticisms of Springsteen. So that's kind of brought it very much to the fore. They're capitalising, of course, on the Springsteen juggernaut that's currently rolling through Europe, as am I with this video, I guess. Anyway, as always, I'd love to know your thoughts on this matter. Do leave your comments below. Do click like, subscribe, and check that notification bell. It all helps feed that hungry dog that is the YouTube algorithm and helps this channel to grow, which is a good thing in my opinion. And of course, share this video. Do share it and other things like that. Anyway, I'll leave you with my closing salvo, which is, as you know by now, hope you're well, staying safe, and of course that you keep listening.